This is Doris Cruz. I am Chair of the Zoning and Land Use Committee.
Doris, could you center yourself a little bit, please?
Okay, is that better?
Thank you.
Now we can see you.
I want to thank Mark for hosting this and for spending time in the last several days giving us all the tutorials to help this work better at time. And so I will call the meeting to order, and we start with an application from the restaurant Positano for an enclosed sidewalk cafe. Do we have?
Shall I go ahead?
Oh, yes, okay.
Hi, my name is Michael Kelly. I'm representing Osterio Positano LLC, doing business as Positano. We're a full-service Italian restaurant, 118 4th Avenue at the corner of 101st Street and 4th Avenue. We've been in business at this location for almost 3 years. We currently have an unenclosed cafe license at the location. For the enclosed cafe, we would be using 7 feet 4 inches of the sidewalk, which is 2 inches more than we're currently using for the unenclosed cafe. We would have 19 tables and 38 seats in the enclosed cafe. The current unenclosed cafe has more seating. It has 22 tables and 44 seats. The entire cafe would be on 4th Avenue, just like the unenclosed. At this point, we have approval from the Department of City Planning, and the application now goes to the Community Board. And as it makes its way down, it'll go to the Department of Buildings. Department of Buildings will be looking at our plans to make sure everything's legal, and there may be changes by them. And we're here to talk about the cafe with the Community Board.
As Josephine told you earlier today, that your current application says you do not have any, it does not say that you have an unenclosed sidewalk cafe license. So
That is correct.
would it be appropriate to amend that?
No, this is the enclosed sidewalk cafe application. We do have an unenclosed cafe, meaning the unenclosed cafe are just seats and tables that are out on the sidewalk. Best way to describe it, they're open to the sky. The enclosed cafe, I sent some type of rendering of what we're doing. And the enclosed cafe is actually a built structure with a roof on it, walls, and it'll have opening windows. But the owner, Joseph, who's also on this, can explain what the enclosed structure would be made of.
Yeah, so if I could just jump in for a second. Nice to see some of you again. I've been to the Community Board previously. I own Positano as well as Campagna. We did have a meeting regarding Positano and the outdoor enclosure, which was a while back. I don't know the exact date, but the issue that we had was that we did enclose that with bad weather or as it got colder. And we realized that we didn't apply for the right permit at that moment. So we've been going at this for a year to sort of to remedy the situation. And what we did have was an outdoor cafe that we enclosed, which is not really how that permit could be applied. So we reapplied for a permit to be able to have that same outdoor cafe, but also enclose it with bad weather or temperature not being so ideal. So that's the thought. That's what precipitated the change in the application or permit.
Some of the other questions were, was that one of the things I don't understand, it's a bit peripheral, that you show something about the tree wells and you're going to put.
Yes. So the pits around the trees are slightly elevated. So we would just have to be 8 feet away from them. And I don't know if the plans are available to everybody, but there's radius measurements on the plans that just show that we're 8 feet away from the trees.
But it says they're going to put paving stones on them?
Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, so there'd be flat paving stones also put around the trees. This way, anybody walking by would be able to walk on the paving stones.
Well, sometimes paving stones become problematic because as the tree roots change, it forces them up, and you see this in many places in Bay Ridge.
Yes.
And it also decreases the nutrients going to the trees.
Uh,
So it's not healthiest for the trees.
No, I know. Me and Joseph talked about this. We'd have a professional gardener doing that and also watching our trees to make sure this doesn't happen. The other thing that can be done is a metal, I
A
guess,
raised barrier?
not raised. It couldn't be raised because we have to keep it flat.
Oh, okay.
Floor.
Like a grate that.
Like a grate.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
And it has more openings for more water to get in. As the tree grows with the roots, I think the grate would be not as good as the flat paving stones, but if we kept our person, and we would keep an eye on it too, of course, watching the tree grow, we'd be changing those flat paving stones as it went along.
Another question that was raised was that you use a valet parking surface.
Yes,
And as one of the pictures that Josephine sent out today, it clearly shows the valet parking signs are in the driving lane. And that is not permitted. And I live in the area, so I pass it often. And it's not unusual for there to be 3 to 4 cars lined up on 4th Avenue waiting to be moved. And probably about a month ago, there was even a car parked diagonally blocking the crosswalk. So these are important issues for the community.
yes. I spoke with Joseph about it before. If you want to.
Yeah, I
Feedback?
don't know how recent the picture is. I'm not, obviously we have issues with parking, in the neighborhood. We try to address it by increasing. I believe I spoke to the community board. I believe they sent me a letter, and I called, and I'm not sure who I spoke with at that point. I realized that it is an issue. So it's like it's a sort of a catch-22, not necessarily catch-22, but there's not much parking. They put the sign out. The sign being out becomes somewhat of an issue because they use it to sort of block a spot. So we try to now, we explain to them that obviously they cannot do that. We increase the amount of attendance when we see that it's going to be busier than usual. There are times that we're abnormally busy and it becomes a little bit backed up. We try to park the cars as quick as we can. I'm not denying, there's moments I'm sure that there's cars double parked there, but we're doing our best. We do address it. The police department comes by and we do realize it's an issue. We definitely don't want to cause an obstruction. It's a little bit of the nature of the beast of the restaurant is that it just, if you have a table o'clock, or let's say 7 o'clock Saturday night, there's just a lot of cars that come. It's hard to handle that all at that moment. But by increasing the attendance, we're doing a better job, I feel, at it. Is there work? I'm sure there is. I mean, we could do, I'm sure we could do a little bit more.
And I know you're very aware of what a dangerous intersection that is.
Well, yeah. I mean, just recently, you could see what happened. That was due to speeding, other things. But no, listen, it definitely is. My concerns not only for people in the neighborhood parking, but also for the attendants being in the street there. It's dangerous for them as well to sort of have these cars double parked, getting in the car in a passing lane. There's other risks involved that I would like to avoid, aside from the community reason, the people actually working, not to create more of a hazard than necessary when they're trying to do their job.
Any questions from the committee? Okay.
So I got a question. So it's going to be, you're going to switch back and forth from it being an open cafe to a closed cafe depending on the weather. Is that the point of the permit? So you have the flexibility.
So yeah, we have some. Sorry, Mike.
Okay.
We have some. I believe Mike has the pictures. Some ideas of a type of enclosure we would use. It's sort of like a trifold. Mike, you have the picture? Otherwise, I have the book with me.
I emailed it over to the community board, but basically,
Okay. Well, I have an idea. Here. Let me just
the
get to it.
enclosed cafe is basically a permanent structure. But what'll happen is the windows will be opening up. So it'll give you the feel of an unenclosed cafe, especially during the nice weather. But it also has the ability to totally self-enclose.
So it'll be something along the lines of this demonstration here. Pretty much like a trifold window. Looks like this closed, drops down to street level, creates like a sort of a barrier also in between the restaurant and the sidewalk. But that'll be open. Obviously, on top of this is open. As far as the roof goes, whether or not that'll be retractable, opened, or closed, I really don't know. I'll be honest with you. I really haven't got to that point yet. We've been so long at this, trying to get this done. I don't necessarily want to put the cart in front of the horse, you know. So we're waiting, obviously, for this to go. And then I'm working with them, this company in particular, to do an enclosure in Staten Island, another Campagna that we're putting. But it's it's something more. It's a nice, sleek looking design. Not something you would see typically at like a fruit store or something on the corner. Something more modern looking. LED lights built into the roof. Oh, here's
Thank you.
okay. You're welcome. Yeah, so that's the architect's rendering.
If you look at the bottom of the plans, on the left side, it'll say 1 foot max. With that, be a solid piece of the enclosed cafe. Always be there. And at this point, that's the unenclosed cafe.
Another question that has come up is the access to the fire escape. When it was 101, they actually made access through the awning. There is no access from the street from the fire escape to the street now. How will that be handled?
There is access now. I believe the same cutout that 101 had. There is a cutout also for the fire escape to drop through.
Could we go back to the last picture, because I didn't see it?
Yeah.
I could have just missed it.
It's a Velcroed
It's
piece of
Velcro.
canvas.
Okay.
It's a piece of canvas that's like Velcroed. It's like, I don't know the exact dimension. It's you see at the base of
Yeah,
the
I
ladder,
see.
you can see it
Okay.
sort of, yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm not even sure. I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure how far out from the building that is. The enclosure might very well be within that. Mike, I'm sure we could clarify whether or not it is.
You know, what I've seen with the enclosed cafes is the ladder is built a little differently, so we would have to do that, and we'd also have to get approval from the Department of Buildings to have this, where the ladder would come out at a slight angle, so it hit the sidewalk, and it would rest against the actual enclosed cafe, the actual building of it. But that's going to have to be approved by the Department of Building. They're going to be looking for a safety first.
But if it's necessary, we don't have that exact measurement to even know whether it's necessary
It appears it comes out the fire.
or not. It could
comes out
fall
about
outside
4
the
to 5
enclosure.
feet.
And how far out does the
It looks
enclosure
like-
come?
The enclosure comes out 7 feet 4 inches.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna have to remedy that somehow.
Using the hand raise? Are we using the hand raise?
I did, but I'm not, I'm
Oh,
not.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it. It's a yes, Ann.
Okay. How much concrete sidewalk is there between the outside face of the cafe and the edge of the actual concrete, not pavers, not tree bed, flat concrete?
You have an 18-foot 8-inch sidewalk, and the
Depth.
yes. And what measurements are you looking for?
No, she wants to
looking
know
from
from the edge of. I'm sorry, Andy.
From the
She wants to know
outside,
from the edge of the partition to the well of the tree.
right.
Not
the
forget about the
concrete
paver.
dimension.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
it's eight. I think
It's
that's
over
8
8 feet. It looks like
Yeah.
it's about 9 feet.
It is. I thought you were counting this distinctive pavers of the well in the 8 feet?
No, the 8 feet
Okay,
come from the tree. I'm sorry.
so there
I
is
think-
at least 8 feet of flat concrete before the well.
Yes,
Yes, yeah.
No,
Mike,
it's no distinctive pavers in that dimension.
no, there would be some pavers in the 8 feet.
Okay, so what is the dimension of the flat concrete from the face of the wall to the start of the distinctive pavers? Concrete alone.
Well, from the tree to the cafe, it's about 9 feet. So from the area, the flat concrete is about 7 feet.
7 feet.
Yes. And the
Okay. What
pavers
is
appear
it
to be
now?
about 2 feet.
What is it now between the open sidewalk cafe?
It would be an additional 2 inches. The open cafe is 7 feet 2 inches. The enclosed cafe would be 7 feet 4 inches. So there's a 2 inch
And
difference.
then, okay, and then you said that extra foot would actually be distinctive pavers in the tree well that's going to
Yes.
be landscape maintained as flat.
Yes.
Thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, yes, Mr. LaRocca, before you had an unenclosed sidewalk cafe, you were operating an unenclosed sidewalk cafe. And you did it for quite a while. And I recall that when you applied for it, we asked you about that. And you really didn't have an adequate explanation. My question for you is that if you ignored the rules back then, why should we believe that you will abide by the rules now?
oh, well, okay, so yeah, I do recall that. We were working with the outdoor cafe from the previous restaurant 101. My partner at the time failed to file the renewal for it. That was what made it illegal. Since then, we've had this meeting and we rectified it by applying the proper way to get the outdoor cafe. Realizing now that we applied for the wrong permit because we like to keep it year round, that issue came up before the community board. We pulled it down to adhere to the community board and the law. And now we're reapplying again. So we went the whole winter without an outdoor cafe, without that space, because we didn't have the permit for it. Now we're trying to do it, we have been trying to do it, and we're going to continue to try to do it the proper way. I mean, this is the proper way. We're not trying to do anything. If you go there now, there's no outdoor. Well, actually, now legally we could have an outdoor cafe, weather permitting. So if the weather's permitting, you would see chairs and tables. They would be there within the law, within the parameters of
Actually,
permit.
Actually, Mr. LaRocca, what happened was you applied for it, but while you applied for it, you continued to operate it despite the fact that you were advised that you should not. So my question again is that since you didn't listen to us the second time, why would we believe that you're now going to operate properly?
Well, I mean, I'm here in good faith to tell you that we're going to operate properly. There's not, to go back.
Hold on. You did that prior. What happened was that you applied for it, but while you applied for it, you continued to operate it despite the fact that you were told that you could not. So that's actually 2 times that you did not comply with the law.
I'm sorry. What? Could you mention both times? I recall one. We left the meeting, and I believe that night the meeting was late. I remember that it was dark. The outdoor cafe was up that night, and it was down by Monday. I believe the meeting was like a Thursday or Friday. It was down by Monday. The time that you're mentioning that I did not cooperate was, I believe, either that Friday night or Saturday night. That I do recall that. There's no excuse for that. But this 2 times, I don't know the second time, if that's the first.
What I'm talking about is that you were told about it, then you applied for it, and during the application, which took a while, as it always does,
Mhm.
you continued to operate it.
Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, I
know a
don't know.
little background.
I don't know the date. Yeah, Mike, you probably know. I don't have the dates in front of me, so I'm
Okay,
not.
so once the enclosed is built, that's it. Nothing else can go on to make it illegal. It's going to be within the same parameters. At one point, Joseph was operating his other restaurant, and that's where he used to be all the time. And his other partner was operating this one. At this point, Joseph is the only one operating Positano. He's the one keeping an eye on it. His other partner is not involved anymore in the day-to-day operation.
Yeah, well, he's not involved at all, actually, but he's not involved at all. We parted ways as far as that goes. But I do, I do have a sense where you're going with that, and it's not not to be disrespectful to anybody. I hope you don't take it that way. We tried to do best that we could. There was, the question came up. The time I do remember, the question came up of whether or not, if that partition was taken down nightly, whether or not that would be considered a temporary structure or a permanent structure. And that was how the conversation went. And it was sort of through consensus that it was sort of believed that whether or not we take it down nightly doesn't necessarily matter. But I didn't find it factual leaving that meeting. I thought it was more like it's better off that you don't type of thing. The way I remember it, I could be incorrect. This is a while ago. I'm not sure how long.
Okay, this is Doris. I would like to reinforce something Steve is emphasizing, his credibility. And for 2 winters, 17-18 and 18-19, you had an enclosed sidewalk cafe at that location. You enclosed it with the canvas barriers.
Enclosed with the canvas barriers. Yes, that's correct.
And you had no permit for that.
We were operating under the assumption that if it was, even though it was enclosed, if it was able to be removed, it would be within the letter of the permit. That was the assumption that we operated in under.
What I see a lot of people operate, they do get these plastic things or canvas things and surround their unenclosed cafes with it. Under the city law, that makes it an enclosed cafe, which would make it illegal. But what an enclosed cafe really is a solid flame-resistant structure, meaning glass and metal. But once he puts the canvas around it, technically he would be operating an enclosed cafe. So he was breaking the law at that time. At this point, he's trying to remedy that.
Thank you.
And what I was talking about before, when his partner was operating the restaurant and he didn't have as much to do with it as he does now, that's not making an excuse for what happened.
No, I'm not trying to make an excuse. I'm just trying to give you
said you were.
I'm just trying to give the rationale. I did operate under the advice with the assumption that if it's removable, it could stay. And not to say that we removed it every night. I'm not trying to say that. But if it's possible to remove it, not anchored into the sidewalk and into the walls up above, etc., that it would be considered a temporary structure.
Mr. LaRocca, let me be clear. I'm talking about the unenclosed cafe. Okay, originally, we told you it was illegal, continued.
Yes. I lost you. I'm sorry, I lost you a little bit.
The unenclosed cafe, the original one, all right? That was something that you operated for a long time without any kind of a permit, which is required for an unenclosed cafe. So the question is, why would we believe here that you're going to operate within all the parameters that are required?
Okay, so I could answer that 2 ways, and it's not trying to come up with an excuse. I had a partner when I opened Positano. My arrangement with my partner, because I operate the Campagnas, it's a big enough job to do that. So I had an opportunity to get involved in Positano through my partner, Alex, who is no longer my partner. Our arrangement was for him to operate the restaurant and for me to support him monetarily. And every so often we meet and we speak about financials, etc. At that time, I was not operating the daily operation of the restaurant. I wasn't doing the paperwork. All this fell through the wayside, not by my fault. At this point now, as of 2020, I'm the sole owner of Positano. As of 2019, January, I'm the managing member of the company, operating the restaurant. Since I've been operating the restaurant, we have not had an illegal outdoor cafe. We've had an illegal temporary outdoor cafe, illegal seasonal outdoor cafe. And my intention is, that's why we're here, is to do this the right way and to get a year-round outdoor cafe. Yes, some partners and it's not necessarily an excuse. At that time, I was not operating the restaurant day to day. You know, I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer than that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Also, if I could just note, so Campagna, I do operate day to day since it opened in 2014. And I don't think, aside from once in a while the garbage man drops some garbage on the sidewalk, it's really not my fault. We haven't had any issues regarding anything in the you know, with the community board. So I would use that as the barometer of my credibility, as opposed to what my partner has done as the managing member previous to me. We obviously have our differences. That's why I'm the sole owner now, and he's no longer with me.
Any more questions? Josephine, we had a list of issues.
And Anne has a question.
I think we have. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Anne.
Unmute yourself.
And you have to unmute yourself.
You're muted, Anne.
Too bad for you that I unmute myself. I just want to say, Joseph, that, you know, we have the community's interest at heart, but it is particularly touching for me tonight to be listening to you with a business go forward attitude in these tough times. And it is uplifting.
Well, listen, I appreciate that. My intention is to be a, you know, contributor to the community. We do contribute to, you can name a church, you can name a police station, you can name a school. We contribute up and down the line. If anybody asks for anything, we never say no. We're not here to, we took some missteps, but, you know, we're trying to right the ship. I will right the ship. I promise you that.
Doris, did you have a question for me?
Oh, I said, we had a list of concerns. I think we've addressed them all.
Yeah, we covered everything, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, we've
Thank
heard
you.
the presentation. Any further discussion?
It's Steve. I think I would, are we talking about discussion now with the members only?
Yes. We just lost your video, your audio, I think.
Oh, you got me?
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, I just wanted to say that I think despite the fact that I'm a little bit concerned about the past, I'm likely to vote for this, but I am concerned about the latter. All right. While I understand that they say that it has to be that this has to be passed through the buildings department, that ladder is crucial to the people who live above. Mr. LaRocca, again, this has nothing to do with what I've spoken about.
I agree with you. Yeah.
I do believe that it's something that we should, that if we do approve it, it should be approved with specifically saying that there's a concern about the ladder and that we don't approve in the event that the ladder cannot be made safe for the people above. That ladder is a fire escape. I don't even know how they would do that. Maybe Mr. Kelly could explain it a little bit better, but I just don't see how they can make that work. And that to me is a deal buster if there is not a reasonable way to handle it.
And what I was,
Rightfully
what I-
so. I'm sorry, Mike, but rightfully so. Me and Mike spoke previous to this meeting, and we realized that the particular fire escape ladder in question is not shown on that plan. Obviously, we're not trying to cause an obstruction and God forbid of an emergency. But that fair enough to approve it based on that, or however you like to do that. That's fine by me. But I guarantee you, there will not be not an allowance made for that.
what I was looking at and talking with Joe about is the cafe comes in a straight line. Where the door is, there's tables on either side where there's a possibility of us bringing that in and making a little cubby hole there, approximately 2 feet in. This way it'll maintain the enclosed cafe, but it'll also give that ladder a couple of more feet to come down. I'm sure we'll be discussing that with the Department of Buildings also.
Okay, Josephine
they're
has
gonna-
her hand up. Joe? Well, while we're waiting,
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that in speaking with the Department of Buildings, that they would not approve plans that would have the fires. Can I go? Am I good?
yeah.
Okay, I'm back. Do you hear me now? It's my internet connection. Can you hear me now?
Better.
Yes.
This is Doris. I have another question. The
Is
enclosed,
that better now?
okay.
Okay, so I just want to say that the Department of Buildings would not approve plans unless that fire escape is handled. I did speak with them. And there are ways to adjust the fire escape, but they assured me that that plan would not be. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, this is Doris again. The sidewalk, the enclosed cafe would cover the cellar doors. Are there any issues with that with buildings or other departments?
The cellar doors for where we get deliveries in?
And where your workers go up and down all the time?
Yes. So they're gonna be finding a new way to come up and down from the inside.
No, those cellar doors are already well. They have a gate around them. They have a gate around them already. The cellar doors. Yeah, look on the.
Yes, I know they do it.
Yeah, no, I'm telling Mike to show on the plan
Yeah.
the new.
Is that cellar door access only for the part of the basement that you have access to, or do other,
No, just for our use.
it's just for your uses?
Yes.
Okay, I think we would have to confirm that.
Yeah, you can see it right at the end of that first sort of batch of tables there. It's right there, right past that.
Hello?
I'm sorry, I didn't see that cellar door. Is it on Fourth or on this side street?
It's on Fourth.
So
I
it's,
might have a,
so it's inside the cafe?
Mike, how do they have that proposed?
They don't. It's not on the plan at all.
Let me see.
It's on the unenclosed
Yeah.
plan.
Because it's not only about the deliveries, but about fire egress from the cellar.
Trying to find a picture of it, but I don't have a picture. So is that gonna be with Mike? Is it gonna be within or outside of?
It would be within it, the way the cafe is.
So it would have its own door to access it.
Is there another way into the basement,
No,
that door?
no, that's the only door without going. The other way into the basement is through the building.
Yes.
So that's not practical to do that.
Yeah, they would not use the door during the cafe's operating hours then? Would they?
You know, this is a while ago. We submitted this. I believe that was the idea, not use it during operating hours. I believe that was the idea. Yeah,
So everything would be done before, whatever prep they do down in the basement would be done before the cafe opened.
yeah.
How would that work? So, if there was in other words, I think that Mike mentioned that as fire access or egress, if someone was in the basement, and I'm totally confused as to how that's going to work. I mean, if it's for egress in a fire, and it should be available, and it doesn't lead to a door, and there's a table on top of it. Explain this to me.
Well, we wouldn't be using it during operating hours of the cafe, so there'd be no one down there. But during the hours where the cafe is not operating, then the door would be open into the cafe. The workers would do whatever they're doing downstairs, and then they'd close it down when people started sitting in the cafe.
Like, there's never a problem until there's a problem.
Yes, as Joe was saying, there is access out of that basement through the building, besides our sidewalk vault that would go into the enclosed cafe. Joseph?
I
I'm
think,
sorry. I'm just thinking. Is it possible to amend it if we had to, or let's say put a door on that part of the enclosure?
On
Mike.
the floor?
I'm saying on the enclosure that you have. Yes, so we could use it during non-operating hours. But if for some reason it becomes a situation that we have to use it during operating hours, how could we do that? Is it possible to slightly amend that design, put a door there instead, let's say, at that part of the enclosure?
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
You might have to use it a little bit. Is there access through the building into the restaurant?
No, but it's not there is. It's not the most practical route to take.
If you're not really using it, and there's an emergency where someone had to do something, there is access out of the basement.
Mhm.
Other means.
Oh no, there's access out of the basement. Yes.
is it possible for you to eliminate the table that it will be placed on top of that sidewalk vault door so that you maintain the two exits from the cellar? One internally through the building and the other directly through the sidewalk hatch.
Yeah, that's sort of, and that's sort of what I was getting at. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you there. We just have to, well, there's ways, once you get up that cellar door, you have access into the restaurant. It's a means of egress. So, yeah, I would get rid of
Right,
that
but that's
table.
one means.
The other one being through the building. But I'm saying to keep that as a viable means of egress by
Yeah,
not having a table on top of it.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
And this is very similar to Steve's point about the fire escape above. I think if we're going to look favorably on this application, it needs to highlight that it's pending building department approval.
Yeah.
Both from the upper floors and for 2 means from the cellar level, neither to be obstructed.
Yeah. First, I don't even know the practicality of having a table on top of a cellar door. I don't even think it's possible. So I
On a
don't
busy
believe-
night, it's possible.
Oh, well, on a busy night, anything's possible.
Yeah, you're
But,
actually allowed to have them on the cellar doors, as
You
long as
are?
they're
Oh,
locked
okay.
and supported during hours of operation.
Yeah, I wouldn't sit on it. But okay, yeah, I would forego to get rid of that table if that's I agree with that. Oh yeah.
I wanted to let you know that Doris lost her connection. She's trying to log on again. Did you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I just saw her pop up again. There she's back.
Yeah, okay. So where were we when I left?
So we just had a conversation about the cellar doors and the fire escape. And we went through buildings department, would have to review it in order to make those approvals. We may be ready for a motion.
Right, I agree. Okay. We've had discussion. Do I have a motion?
It's Steve. I would move, is it okay?
Yes,
Okay. I would move approval, subject to the 2 things we're talking about, the fire escape and the cellar door being approved by the Department of Buildings.
Do we have a second?
And
Ann? Oh, okay.
do we have an all in favor?
Do we have a second? I missed that.
Yes, Ann was second. Ann seconded.
Any further discussion?
There should be an individual voice vote here.
Okay,
Okay, do you want me to do roll call?
I think we have to do that on here, yes.
yes, I think Steve's absolutely right.
Okay, so I'll go through the committee list. Michael Devine?
I vote yes. Approval.
Okay. Anne?
Yes.
Ludigo? Barbara Gurmack? Barbara, can you hear us? You have to unmute yourself.
Yes.
Barbara? Okay. Steve Harrison?
Yay.
Okay, Stephanie Mahaney?
Yes.
Anthony Marino?
Yes.
Susan Pulaski? Well, she was on. And then Doris Cruz.
Yes.
Okay. It's unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
We have a quorum?
Yes.
We have the quorum, yes.
The quorum.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you,
Good luck,
everybody.
Mr. LaRocca.
Good
I
luck.
appreciate it. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you,
Stay
everybody.
safe, everybody.
Stay safe. Yes, stay safe.
Yes, thank
Stay
you.
home.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. Okay, next item.
Thank you all. This was an interesting, we are the first Zoom meeting. We are the first.
Nice
I
job.
I think all of you who did do a trial, I think was very helpful to all. of us.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
That's good.
We do have another item on the agenda.
So,
So this is with Anish, right?
yes.
Okay, so as you know, Anish is coming to his time at the end of his fellowship here at Community Board 10. And, we've been talking about, doing a sort of vision for the 65th Street corridor. We had a little charrette that happened I think it was in January. Or was it January? It seems so long ago.
Anyway,
We gathered the folks from the committee and we talked about sort of bounced ideas off each other about what we could consider for the 65th Street corridor. We know that there's all sorts of development going on there potentially. And Anish, he sort of took notes at the meeting and put together a presentation that sort of summarizes some of the ideas that we came up with and some of his own independent study of the area to give us an idea of what we may want to see there on 65th Street. So I'll leave it to Anish to go over some of his findings that he has and to present to us.
Thank you, Mike. Can everybody hear me? Right. Okay, cool. I'll just share my screens.
Oops. Ah,
Wow.
Can you see it now?
yes.
Cool.
yes, very good.
Okay, I'll start. Good evening, everyone. I hope you had a chance to skim the report. I could also post the report link in the chat here so that if anybody wants to have a look at the report, just do that right now. Okay, I cannot find it now. Okay, no problem. Cool. So we're basically going over the stuff that is written in the report. So feel free if you have a copy of the report to open on your computer, if that helps. I first want to briefly revisit some of the discussion we had during the charrette. On this map, I have marked the comments, some of the comments we were discussing on that day. And if you see in purple, these are the new developments that are uh, either ongoing or are proposed. For example, the zoning text change on the Getty Corporation lot here. Um, some of the comments were that the area before the 7th Avenue is has a different feel to it than rest of the area. Access to the Leif Erikson Parkway is difficult from the street. So if any new development comes here, uh, if it is residential, the residents will have a difficult time coming to the parkway. The streetscape currently looks dull as there are no trees and many auto repair shops fill the street with dust and dirt. There's also a mix of traffic on the road because it is also a designated truck route and a lot of auto shops, auto repair shops, and also cars mix on the street. And they all speed up after Fort Hamilton Parkway as they get a clear road as the area after the Fort Hamilton Parkway is predominantly residential. Other than this, there was also a preference for 6 to 8 story buildings in the area and also a building form that would taper off, like that would decrease in height as we go to the Fort Hamilton Parkway. Some members also liked this building model in the zoning handbook on that day. This is a mixed use building type with a base as commercial type of uses and condos or apartment buildings at the top set back from the road so that you don't see a major mass of the building right from the sidewalk. So I'll taking cue from these building forms and streetscape, I've tried to select some zoning types which we can see if they suit what we are envisioning for the street. But before that, let us see the current zoning map first. Most of the corridor right now is zoned for M1 uses, which is the light manufacturing uses. And it doesn't permit residential uses as of right. Recent text amendment in the city has also ensured that hotel uses are not allowed in M1 zones now as of right. Other than that, to the right side are single family attached homes after the Fort Hamilton Parkway and the abutting the 10th Avenue with R5B zoning. While the lots facing the Fort Hamilton Parkway are zoned for R6B zoning, which is a higher type zoning, and also are overlaid with a commercial overlay, so as to provide for local retail needs. So now let's start looking at the options. So we are basically looking for zoning types which would replace these M1 zonings from 6th Avenue to Fort Hamilton Parkway. The first option I think which could be useful is if we zone all the lots before the 7th Avenue, that is from the 6th Avenue to the 7th Avenue, as M12 zoning with a kind of incentive zoning that is currently proposed in North Williamsburg. We'll talk about it in a bit. And the lots after the 7th Avenue till the Fort Hamilton Parkway could be zoned as one of the zoning types of C4 districts. After that, the residential areas could be kept as such. The incentive zoning is currently proposed in North Williamsburg. It is a way to preserve the current light manufacturing units present in the area. So, for example, with the current zoning, certain kind of commercial uses are also permitted. And for every square feet of light manufacturing use in the building, the developers get an additional 2.5 square feet of commercial uses. So it is a way to upzone the area, permit more types of uses, but also to house the light manufacturing uses. And the C4 zonings are to serve a larger needs of a larger region than the local retail stores we find on, say, Fifth Avenue or Fourth Avenue. And the pictures here on the next page show some building forms that are present in. Sorry, the pictures here show some building forms that could be generated using a C4 zoning. For example, if it is a commercial building, it requires a setback from the street, and if it is a contextual zoning, it also requires a setback after the street wall height. If it is a mixed use building, the residential portion is treated differently than the commercial portion, and it would result in a building form that we discussed that day. The district, the 86th Street in southern part of the CD10 is currently zoned as C428 district. You all are aware of the area, the bid. It promotes different kinds of uses with different building heights. The newer building here are 6th-floor high buildings with local retail needs. On the right, you can see a rendering of 65th Street. If we zone the area to a C4 X use, this is if all the lots are developed with their maximum potential, that is to a height of 8 to 9 stories. It should also be noted that this is very difficult as not all lots are wide enough to support a 8-story structure on them. So this is a very rare possibility, but this is the maximum potential of the lots present on the 65th Street. The second option could be, just a second. Okay, the second zoning option keeps the lots from 6th to 7th Avenue as mixed use industrial and commercial, while the zone lots from 7th Avenue to Fort Hamilton Parkway could be zoned as residential uses. When we look at the area surrounding the 65th Street, most of it is zoned for residential uses. The lots facing the 64th Street, as you can see here in this picture, are also single family residences which exist within a manufacturing area. The proximity to PS 96, to the 2 subway stations, to the Leif Erikson Park, to shops, and to the medical center also make it a desirable area for residential uses, I think. This is a zoning map for the larger area. You can see this, the purple area is all manufacturing uses, and the red rectangle here is the current corridor we are talking about. Areas surrounding it are all residential, and the major avenues have commercial overlays on them. So the idea is to zone the current lots as residential while continuing this commercial overlays to join the northern portion and the southern portion of the corridor. These are some of the building types that can be produced with the proposed R6 zoning. There are various options developers can choose, but the buildings can go maximum up to 8 or 9 floors generally. The pictures on the right show some of the buildings in the area. For example, the stall building is actually 12-story high condominium building at 60th Street and 9th Avenue. The 12-story height is actually, I guess, determined also by the building's location in a transit zone, which decreases the required amount of parking for it. The second picture is a picture of the 5th Avenue and 60th Street in Brooklyn. The commercial overlay allows the retail for neighborhood needs, and the new buildings are required to follow the housing requirements and thus start right up from the street. So the contextual zoning you see here is this one, and the height factor zoning you see, which allows for taller buildings, allowed for this kind of a building. This could be another option for the area, permitting 8 to 9-story high buildings over the street. The third option could be if we keep the area as it is, That is to keep the area zoned for uses which are currently present on the street. Uh, so the proposal is to map all the areas up till the 9th Avenue as C8 district. So the C8 districts were actually mapped alongside streets in 1961, where auto-oriented uses are present. That is along the major arterial roads. So if we look at the pictures of the street at present, these are on the left are pictures of the 65th Street today. A lot of auto-oriented use like car wash shops or auto repair shops, gasoline stations are present because it is the truck route and because it is also near to the expressways. On the right, you can see area around 90th Street in Brooklyn, right near the 86th Street bid. This area also has a similar feel to it with car dealerships and auto repair shops and other kinds of uses which are between manufacturing and commercial types of uses. So this area is currently zoned as C8 2A zoning, which allow these kinds of uses to locate in the area and also allow some type of community facilities to locate there. The proposal is to use a C8 district, but with a higher zoning suffix. So these are the building types which could be generated by a C8 district. You can see there's a gasoline station here and a building which is lower in height because the C8 zoning allows for a lower density, a lower FAR for the building. How it is different from the current zoning is that M1 type of zoning allows for a commercial FAR of 2.4. If we choose a higher suffix zoning such as a C83 or C84, higher density community facilities could also be located in the area. So if you can see here in the table, the C83 and C84 have a higher commercial FAR of 2 and 5 and also a higher community facility FAR, which would allow for uses such as schools or other kind of community facilities to be housed in the area. Sorry, did I went too fast or was it okay? So these are the 3 zoning types I think could be explored in the area. This is the present zoning map. The first zoning option I explained was using M11 and C4 or C5 districts. The second used R6 or R6B districts, that is allowing for only residential uses with commercial uses along the major avenues. And the third was using a C8 district to preserve what is currently, not to preserve, but to house similar kinds of uses in the future, similar to the uses which are currently present in the area, but also to allow for higher FAR community facilities.
All right, well, thank you. Is that the full presentation, Anish?
Yeah, I think that was it. We can discuss over it, and also I had some suggestions for streetscaping, but because the zoning changes also require a kind of street treatment from the new buildings, so I could not include it here, but I will include it in the final report.
Okay, great. Do we have any favorites here amongst the board?
Anish, this is Steve. I only have one hand available because my other hand is holding down the unmute. If I could, I would applaud for you. You did a great job. You did a really good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You kept up a tradition with the people who come in and do you just did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I would like to enforce that. You did a terrific job. And if we're quiet, it's because we have a lot to absorb.
Oh yeah, yeah. Uh, yeah. Maybe I went too fast because it's difficult to convey on a video, I guess. So
In the
should I put?
presentation, this is Doris. In the presentation you sent, you listed the owners of many properties.
Yeah. Yes.
Could you send that to us in a sortable format?
Sure. Sure. I can send you an Excel sheet for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was interesting. You could see that several, like J something Realty Corp owned like 8 properties.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And then there
that
were others, and it would be nice to look at that, and because that shows a serious vulnerability too.
right. Right. Yeah. That was also something that came up during the planning charrette.
Mhm.
So yeah.
One of the things, Anisha, I recall about our charrette meeting was that we wanted to at least consider not having any high rise on the block between 6th and 7th. That is essentially almost like an entrance ramp, if you will.
Yeah.
And which of your options shows 0 residential on that block between 6th and 7th?
So all of the options permit like zero residential users on the blocks because okay, I can pull up the report, I guess. Yes. So the first 2 options you can see here are both zoned as the area from 6th to 7th Avenue is zoned for manufacturing and commercial uses. Like we are incentivizing manufacturing, but we are also permitting other kinds of commercial uses. But in both, residential uses are not allowed. In the third form, in a C8 district, uh, residential users are not allowed as well. So in all kinds of, like in all 3 options, there is no residential use from 6th to 7th Avenue.
Okay. And what is the height limitation in each of those 3 options for that particular block?
Okay, so for the first 2 options, it depends on. So it's a new tool which is currently being proposed in Industry City and in Northern Williamsburg. Like there's a building called 225 Kent Avenue, if I recall correctly. Michael told me about it, and so that would permit an FAR of, let's say, 3.5 for every square feet of manufacturing uses if we are getting 2.5 square feet of commercial uses. So you can expect up to also height of the building is also determined by how wide and how deep the lot is. So if a building can support like a 4-story structure or 8-story structure, that would also be determined by how big is the lot itself. So we can expect buildings up to 4 to 5 stories maybe for maximum of 4 stories or 5 stories in this area. And for a C8 district, I think it's the same because a commercial FAR. Yeah, I'll recheck for the C8 district, but I guess for these 2 kinds of options, the maximum building height could be 4 to 5 stories.
Your presentation is great, but I think for me, it highlights that block is too dense.
Okay. This one from 6 to 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would just like to make a note on option 2.
Mhm.
If we rezone to R6 or R6B, we get mandatory inclusionary housing and increase in height.
Yeah. So the height of 8 stories is like the maximum possible height with the mandatory inclusionary
Okay.
zoning as well as a qualifying ground floor. So
Thank you.
with both those options, a maximum of 8 stories can be permitted on the block. And if it is a non-contextual zoning, then the builder can use the height factor or the tower kind of development. But that is generally not encouraged because they also get a higher FAR, like a more FAR, if they align their building next to the street. So I guess you can expect buildings of 8 to 9 stories in this option as well.
Anish, I thought it was interesting. I think it was for option 1. You said the zoning that you're proposing is the same zoning that's currently on 86th Street. Is that true?
Yeah.
So I was wondering because on 86th Street, it doesn't look that tall to me over there. I mean, currently, is that because 86th Street is not as built as high as it could be?
So there are 2 reasons for that, I believe. One is that 86th Street also comes under the Bay Ridge district, if I am not incorrect. I guess it also comes under the Bay Ridge districts, which limits the heights. And second thing is most of the buildings which are like low rise, I checked on the zoning and land use map. Those are built like maybe 30 years back. And the newest buildings, such as the one, I'll show the picture. Such as this building on the Fort Hamilton Parkway and 86th Street, like towards the end of the bid, are like newer buildings and are more in height. These are all 6 stories high buildings, 6-story high apartment buildings. So I guess the new constructions would be taller than the current buildings there.
Okay, thanks. I have another question. I think it was in option number 3. You talked about the zoning, the new kind of zoning that would be in the corridor, and it would. I think it was the C83 and C84.
Yeah.
Which I think you said excludes manufacturing uses. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. So it
Okay.
excludes.
Do you have any idea? I haven't walked over there in quite a while. Did you see any actual manufacturing uses, or are they just in general like industrial uses? Did you see anything being made there, or was it just sort of like auto shops and other of those other kinds of uses?
As far as I remember, I also checked the photos again, which we took that day. The industrial uses are located in the narrower streets, like on 63rd Street and further. So I guess there are no industrial uses as such on the 65th Street itself. There are a couple of furniture shops and all the other uses are, I guess, either restaurants or the 3 guys from Brooklyn store, or the other uses are all auto oriented.
Okay.
For the heights, I can recheck the height permissions in each type of zoning. And because this is a new type of zoning which is currently being proposed elsewhere in the city, I will recheck once, like what are the height limitations for this type of zoning and how high can buildings go. This.
All right. Do other people have comments or questions?
No, I just would like to say that I think it was an excellent report, Nish. It was a pleasure to have you as a fellow at Community Board 10. And I think in the days ahead, we're going to really delve into your report. The options were very thorough, and I think certainly
I think we have a lot to think about, and the more we go over it and maybe email and chat back and forth, we'll have more discussion and time.
I think it'll be interesting too with these new times we're in, what development is going to start to look like in the next 6 months to a year. It's really hard to say. You know, I think obviously it seems like everything's going to be on hold, but only time will tell, you know, if things are going to get close to normal. But at least we have all this information locked and loaded. If things do sort of kind of get back to normal, we have the data to be able to consider the area again in a thoughtful way. And yeah, I would love to thank you, Anish. I haven't said thank you yet. Everybody else is getting in there, but I was a pleasure working with you. And obviously, you can keep in touch with us if you have any questions or you need anything from us or just want to say hi or whatnot. And I think we all wish you the best of luck. Are you in your last semester at Columbia, or do you have more?
Yeah, I'm in my last semester, so I have 1 month to go.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that must be exciting, and we're happy for you. And
Yeah.
we're glad you're here. We were glad to have you for the year. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Review.
Thank you.
Do we have anything else on the agenda for the meeting?
Any old business?
Yeah.
Any new business? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay. Meeting adjourned.
We did it. We got through the meeting.
Anybody need a ride home?
Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you, guinea pigs. We